Sir Stefan here. Today's view comes from the shoulders of two YouTube giants, Master Payne and Bartube. Okay, let's get right to it. Bartube has proposed that Robb Stark is an affront to the gods, the illegitimate son of Brandon, not Ned Stark. First, remove your finger from the thumbs down button and, if you will, try to suppress any ill-conceived timeline notions. Let's actually consider some of Bar's evidence, and may the crone light our way. Our tale begins with a 12-year-old Catelyn Tully spending time in Riverrun with her betrothed, Brandon, the tall, handsome heir to House Stark. Now we know from Lady Dustin that Brandon had no qualms in light to flowering maidens, even out of wedlock. Here's Lady Dustin's quote from A Dance with Dragons. Brandon was never shy about taking what he wanted. I still remember the look of my maiden's blood the night he claimed me. I think Brandon liked the sight as well. A bloody sword is a beautiful thing. As the theory goes, if Catelyn loved Brandon, what harm would there be in sleeping with him shortly before their wedding, especially during a time of peace? How could she know he would ride off just days before their wedding to be killed by the Mad King? But this is pure conjecture. What text evidence do we have that she actually did sleep with Brandon? In Storm of Swords, Cat forgives Robb for breaking the pact with the Freys by marrying Jane Westerling. Cat thinks the following. Only then came her belated remembrance. Follies done for love? He has bagged me neat as a hare in a snare. I seem to have already forgiven him. Ask yourself, what folly is she remembering? We also know that her wedding to Ned was arranged in a hurry. Was she pregnant? It certainly seems similar in many ways to a crossbow wedding, as we say in the Stormlands. Well, here too Martin provides us with a clue. At Edmure Tully's wedding, aka the Red Wedding, Cat recalls her own bedding ceremony. When Lord Dustin saw her naked, he had told Ned that the sight of her breast were enough to make him wish he'd never been weaned. Besides the obvious reference to motherhood here, enlarged breasts are often the first sign of pregnancy. And of course we have the way Cat treats Jon Snow. Recall that Cat completely forgives Ned of his infidelity as a natural comfort of war, but she still hates Jon. Is it because the only way a bastard can challenge a trueborn son is if the trueborn son is actually a bastard? When Cat hears Cersei's children are bastards, she thinks, would even Cersei be so mad? Bartube and Master Payne question the use of the word even here. And a quote from their theory. She can't believe another woman did the same thing she did, which is to let her husband raise another man's child as his own. Let him grow as tall as his father, and hold his own son in his arms. In Storm of Swords, Cat remembers her disappointment in first seeing Ned. She had pictured him as a younger version of his brother Brandon, but that was wrong. Ned was shorter and plainer of face, and so somber. With this in mind, one must ask why Cat so fervently prays that Robb will grow as tall as his father. Something's off here, no? And now let us consider the second part of her prayer. Hold his own son in his arms. Now if Brandon is Robb's father, Cat knows he never got to cradle him, and the prayer makes a lot of sense. This leads us to another interesting passage from Cat. Thinking of Robb and how Ned was away fighting when he was born, quote, she had brought him forth in blood and pain, not knowing whether Ned would ever see him, her son. Why not the more natural his son or their son? There's a second time Cat uses somewhat twisted language in her thoughts. Cat on Robb. He looks like a Tully, she thought, yet he's still his father's son. And Ned taught him well. There do seem to be 4 people in this line. Robb, Cat, the father, and Ned. Martin also sees fit to compare Robb to Brandon directly. At one point, Cat thinks, quote, just for an instant, Robb sounded more like Brandon than his father. But possibly most importantly, we get the passage about conception. Cat tells Robb, who's having a hard time conceiving with Jane Westerling, that it does not always happen the first time. Adding, though, that it did with him. This is so fascinating because how would Cat know he grew from the first planting unless she had only slept with the father once? Maybe Cat only took Ned to bed once over the 2 weeks he spent in Riverrun following their wedding. Though every man knows, no matter how godly, it is more likely Ned would be keen to till his fields a bit better, even if they weren't his first choice. Barr and Payne provide extensive additional evidence in their video, which I'll link in the description. They also try to counter two main problems to their theory. First, Cat thinks to herself about her wedding night, quote, "We made a king that night." Barr proposes that the use of the word made should be taken figuratively and not literally. In other words, by Ned taking her to wife, the child she is carrying becomes the heir to Winterfell and eventually king in the north. Hence, they figuratively made a king that night. Secondly, Cat's virginity, or loss thereof, is oft discussed and questioned. Cat even thinks how she gave her maidenhood to Ned. Case closed, right? Our giants think not. They want to make a distinction between maidenhood and maidenhead, the implication here being that becoming a wife ends one's maidenhood, while the loss of virginity is signified by the maidenhead. This has been number 86, the first of the Holy 100. May the smith forgive me any lapse in its construction. For a sneak peek at number 85, please stay tuned following the summary. The Bloody Sword, representing Brandon's lack of traditional honor. Follies Done for Love, representing some past indiscretion by Cat. The Crossbow Wedding and the Full Breast, representing pregnancy. The Hatred of Jon, representing the threat Jon and the truth poses to Robb. May he grow as tall as his father, representing multiple odd language usages, often including a third person. The miraculous first night conception, which pulls the theory together. Thanks, BarTube. Please vote in the poll.